I hang out in EDA, the Economic Development Administration, to support the conditions for entrepreneurs and startups to succeed as a tool for economic development. In the last decade or so, the US has really embraced entrepreneurial-based economic development as a tool to create jobs, economic diversity, and new economic activity in regions all over the US. This is a little bit different than many economic development professionals might know as some of the more traditional brick and mortar type of strategy, where you're recruiting big firms in to stand up and start large manufacturing efforts, and kind of more of a competitive economic development strategy where you're trying to do exactly that. You're trying to compete for firms across state lines or regions. So the essence today that we want to focus on is really on how can we organically build firms locally with the entrepreneurs, with the researchers, the inventors that we have within our region, instead of having to recruit firms outside. So with me today are 4 people who are focused on exactly that, who are doing it day in and day out across different regions all over. And quick, just to survey the crowd, who here has been to Oklahoma City? Okay, great. I was hoping for that. Who here has been to Raleigh, North Carolina? Okay, a few more. This is great. We've got 4 different ecosystems represented on our panel, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. But I'm glad to see that. I see we're gonna make a lot of money today by educating and informing you about some of these great entrepreneurial hubs in the US that are not New York City, they're not San Francisco or Chicago or Austin, but there's awesome stuff happening all over the US, and these 4 experts will talk to us today about that. So enough from me. I'm just gonna moderate. In short, we're gonna keep it simple. We got 4 regions to cover. To start off, I'd just like you to tell the crowd here who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Again, who you are, what you do, and how you do it. So I'm Craig Buerstatte. I'm the Director for the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the U.S. Department of Commerce. We invest in entrepreneurial ecosystems with grants, support them with policies and other measures. And Erika.
I'm Erika Lucas. I'm the co-founder of StitchCrew. We are a social enterprise that's growing the innovation economy in our state and in our region. And we do that through partnerships. So we recently partnered with the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is the NBA program, which if there are any Canadians in the room, we're pulling for the Raptors to win. But we do that. We run an accelerator program that connects entrepreneurs with capital, resources, and social networks.
Great.
Awesome. Hey y'all, I'm Sarah Glova. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and there I work with a nonprofit group called RIoT. And RIoT focuses on economic development through IoT, or the Internet of Things. So we're focused on IoT, or the Internet of Things, because we feel like this 4th industrial revolution is here. And there are a lot of IoT opportunities to help create and to help capture. And we know that this can help drive economic development, because IoT is creating crazy new business cases, driving all kinds of efficiencies. We want large organizations, we want smart cities, we want research universities, and we want startups to be able to participate in that. We measure our success through job creation and through investment in startups. So how do we do that? That sounds great, but how do we make that happen? Well, we also have a startup accelerator, like Erika just mentioned. Ours, we have a specific hardware focus. To participate in IoT, you need some kind of device that collects this data. And so we have a hardware prototyping lab in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then the sponsors who sponsor us believe in the IoT industrial revolution. They want to participate, they want to know how, and so they partner with us and we help them figure that out, leveraging our nonprofit status to give them neutral advice on where to go next, who to partner with, what tech to look at, etc.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsey Cox. I'm with Launch Tennessee. We're a 501c3 nonprofit public-private partnership with the state of Tennessee. We're perhaps best known for the successful implementation of our hub and spoke model. So Launch Tennessee serves the whole state, but we have 6 regional entrepreneurship centers that serve as the front door of entrepreneurship for their region. We also have numerous other community partners across the state. We focus primarily on capital, market access, talent, commercialization, and creating a friendly environment for our entrepreneurs to thrive in.
I'm Josh Mandell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Halcyon, which amongst other things, our flagship program is a social enterprise incubator, which is headquartered about 2 miles due west of here in Georgetown. We basically look for both artists and startup businesses from anywhere in the world that are trying to solve major 21st century challenges. We're completely sector agnostic. We're a nonprofit model incubator, so we take zero equity in any of the companies. And we have a residential incubator program where all of the startups that are admitted to the program actually live at the facility. So we have a real living, breathing social enterprise ecosystem at Halcyon, which I'll get into later. But really, our focus is on solving these major 21st century challenges in education, health, environment, energy, by investing in the startups who we think are most likely to actually produce, deploy, and at the right price.
Thanks, Josh. So we've got 4 different organizations working to support 4 very different regions. One right in our backyard, Josh Mandell at Halcyon here in DC. But the strategies that they're deploying are different and vary in size and scope. But I'd like to focus on at the top of that is the ecosystem or the region as a whole. So less about your specific programs right now, but could each of you discuss a little bit about the community that you're operating in, the types of entrepreneurs and the industry across your region that makes you unique and also maybe makes you struggle sometimes? Or what are you trying to support in that region as well? What are the gaps?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, please, Erika.
Okay. So Oklahoma, we've always produced high-profile entrepreneurs, particularly in traditional industries like oil and gas, aerospace, banking. We are now at a time where we're focusing on the next generation of entrepreneurs that are more focused on the digital economy. But it's still broad. Our particular accelerator, we don't have an industry focus because the thing that we like about innovation and technology is that you don't have to box it, right? Some of the sensors that you're using and in the healthcare arena can be transferred to aerospace or the oil and gas industry or even agriculture. So we don't have a sector focus because we don't have the density yet. In terms of struggle, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into some of those deals, but I would say I'm excited right now about the fact that we have a new governor, a new lieutenant governor, a new executive director of commerce, which I think is in the back over there, Brent, and a secretary of commerce that are all former entrepreneurs. So they actually get the need that you just mentioned before. We need to recruit and support the large employers that are creating all of those jobs. But really the way forward is by investing in local entrepreneurs and growing organically. Mm-hmm. So.
Great, thanks. So Sarah, I think North Carolina in the Internet of Things, you've got a little bit more defined cluster there, and you've been around for 5-6 years now, I think. So tell us a little bit more about that.
That's right. So RIoT hasn't been around for that long. We're a startup ourselves. We've been around for 5 years. But most of you have probably heard of the Research Triangle Park, which has been around for a long time in that Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill area, and has attracted major companies like IBM. We had a huge mobile wireless presence in that 2008-2009 timeframe when we started to see the decline. Before that, we had organizations like Sony Ericsson and HTC really on the forefront of wireless technology. Well, all of that, years before RIoT was even conceptualized, helped to build the ecosystem that we still have today. When that 2008-2009 bubble burst, there was a nonprofit that bought a lot of the wireless testing equipment, put it into a blank canvas of an area and invited people to come and start companies. So say you and I had an idea for a new mobile device. A huge barrier to market is getting that device tested, telling the FCC, like, hey, I promise it won't interfere with your pacemaker or a microwave. The barrier to that can be paying for a testing company to just tell you, no, your device doesn't work, go home and try again. What if you could work right next to that equipment? So thanks to some foresight in Raleigh and in Wake Forest, that center exists. It's a nonprofit called the Wireless Research Center. And you can go there and you can test your devices and work alongside engineers who in this nonprofit space will help you get your device certified. It's really incredible. And so that wireless ecosystem that really helps to build a foundation for the tech presence in Raleigh has been so important. So how we've leveraged that over the last couple of years to grow our ecosystem quickly is convincing every business that they have a connection to IoT. I like to use the metaphor of the internet revolution. Maybe the tech companies adopted it first, but eventually everyone, even your uncle's plumbing company, needed a Facebook page, needed an email address. IoT is going to be the same way. We're going to have business use cases that disrupt all industries, not just tech industries, but Main Street too. Just as a small example, in the last round of our startup accelerator, we had a smart IoT and blockchain-focused pet cremation company. They were trying to bring more transparency to the system of something that's really close to your heart that you want to have a lot of transparency for and that people want to see done in a sustainable way. So every business is going to be touched by IoT. So we grow our ecosystem by leveraging the diverse tech expertise that's already in Raleigh and helping all businesses understand that they do have a connection to IoT. The last thing I'll mention within this space is really the diversity and collaboration. A lot of the startups that we work with aren't the typical Mark Zuckerberg looking. I mean, people in our office, it's a lot of t-shirt wearing, I will give you that. But a lot of these people, they're starting their third or fourth businesses. They're coming out of the C-suite and starting something. So they don't look like what you typically see on the cover of Wired. And how we're able to do that is we're so collaborative. We're not the Silicon Valley of the East. We are Raleigh, North Carolina. One of our taglines is welcome, y'all. If someone wants to get a cup of coffee with you and ask you a couple questions, you're not going to make them sign an NDA. You're going to get a cup of coffee with them. And it's probably going to be some local coffee company that has its own roaster. And so, I mean, it's just a really collaborative area, a lot of diversity. So if you haven't been to Raleigh, I highly encourage you, reach out. I can help set up some meetings, no NDA required, and we'll help you see why we've been able to grow this ecosystem so quickly.
Thanks, Sarah. So the Research Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and the surrounding rural communities too. I know you've got a great reach. Moving from I don't want to call it a smaller community, but clearly a city or a tri-city region to a big state. So Tennessee, Lindsey, your team is operating across a very dispersed state. Tennessee, for those that don't know what it looks like, it is a very long, dispersed state. You've got some challenges there.
Yes.
So talk to us about what you're doing, the state of the ecosystem there, and what you're most excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we're very, very long state. I think we're about 7.5 hour drive end to end. So not always the easiest to get an entrepreneur from Memphis to Kingsport, Tennessee. So we really do rely on our regional entrepreneurship center hub model to connect those. So we're really creating density in the state via this connected network. So if you're an entrepreneur in Memphis and you need to utilize the mentoring resources of a Knoxville or a Nashville of a Chattanooga, we can help you do that in a very streamlined fashion. So I think that is a really unique opportunity that we have. We also have industry strengths throughout all of our regions. So Memphis, for example, heavy med device, St. Jude research is there. Knoxville, in addition to being a maker city, Oak Ridge is right outside. So that is another great resource. We partner with the lab.
For those that might not know, can you explain what Oak Ridge is?
Sure. So Oak Ridge is a national lab. It is heavily focused on energy. So for any folks interested in energy in the room, there's a really great program that we've been partnered with within the national lab called Innovation Crossroads that is striving to foster the next generation of advanced energy entrepreneurs. And so that's been a great kind of asset and way we're connecting. In Nashville, we of course have the music industry, but we also have health tech as well as fintech. And then Chattanooga is perhaps best known for the gig. But where I really see our opportunity is within our rural communities. So we also have 2 regional entrepreneurship centers located in more rural locations. And for us, that could be developing the talent pipeline in those regions. So for example, with the Co., which is located in Jackson, Tennessee, in between Memphis and Nashville, they have a really great program called Driving Innovation, where they literally drive a tricked out bus across the state of Tennessee to engage with school systems to start fostering that entrepreneurship and technology idea even younger within our communities. So I think that's great and a very cool opportunity.
Absolutely. So Josh Mandell, entrepreneurship in Washington, D.C. Tell me about it. In the world's hub for politics, how is it possible to grow successful, high-tech, disruptive businesses here? Tell us about Halcyon.
Well, it's tough to describe it when you lead in like that. It's true. Typically for our foreign visitors and even domestic visitors, Washington, D.C. is considered a government town. If you look at the numbers, it's certainly the largest employer in the entire region. But I would say that actually we just conducted a study called the Social Enterprise Ecosystem Report, which looked at actually 24 cities, major entrepreneurial hubs across the United States. For social enterprise, which I'll get into a little bit later, Washington, D.C. is actually ranked third in the United States for a whole variety of reasons of places to start a social enterprise. And when I say social enterprise, I'm not talking about nonprofit projects. I'm actually talking about a majority of for-profit product service businesses that just happen to have social impact woven into their business plan, which I personally think is the future of startups, but we can kind of get into that later. But I think that Washington, D.C.'s ecosystem for startups started exclusively because of the people. It wasn't because of massive government investments. It wasn't because of huge policy shifts. It happened because you have a huge number of civically minded individuals who either worked in government, came out of government, who want to do some good to change the world. They got an education. They came to Washington to either intern for a member of Congress or perhaps work for an agency. Did their time in the government, as I did too in my previous career. And realized that perhaps government wasn't the best conduit to actually having the kind of impact they wanted. Washington, D.C. is an incredibly livable city. Once you leave downtown and go visit the neighborhoods of Washington, you'll actually see many different cities. So I encourage everybody to get out there and actually see the city of Washington as opposed to just going to the kind of typical tourist stops. It's a very young, highly educated, has about 10 research universities within 10 miles of the city center. So it has all of those ingredients that make it a great place to start a business. You have New York not so far away. You have the Baltimore-Richmond corridor. And D.C. is just a fun place to live. And I always say, Silicon Valley wouldn't be Silicon Valley if it didn't have good weather. And I think that not that Washington, D.C. has great weather, but it's an attractive place to live. I ended up here 20 years ago by accident and kind of never left. And it's a kind of city that's always improving. Mm-hmm. So I think for a startup that's looking for a fun, interesting, dynamic place to live where you can access all kinds of incredible talent, D.C. is one of the best.
I want to run with that for a second. Right now, the cost of starting a business is ever more increasing. The barriers, the competitiveness, you name it, there are so many issues out there that are thwarting entrepreneurs and preventing them from scaling a business. And some of that is sanity and keeping balanced and enjoying the ride and having a good time while you're doing it. And one thing that I get a lot of pleasure with is seeing all the exciting communities that I get to visit across the nation that are building dynamic, thriving entrepreneurial hubs. One way they're able to do that is by embracing the community's strengths, embracing the qualities, whether it's in Salt Lake City and the skiing and the outdoor activities, or what Josh talked about, the quality of life here in the city, the history, the museums, you name it. So I want to take a moment to talk about some of those characteristics in your communities for very different regions right now that are attracting the entrepreneurs. And also give us one teaser, what's your personal favorite thing to do on your free time to relax or to enjoy the region? Tell us, this is after all, we're trying to recruit some business here at SelectUSA. So this is your opportunity, recruit.
Yeah, so obviously we love going to watch a Thunder game. So we love the NBA team. We actually, we're outdoors type of people, and I keep pointing out my co-founder and also husband over there, but we love the outdoors, so we actually have the Boathouse District, which is a place that houses a lot of rowing athletes that are heading over to Tokyo in 2020 for the Olympics, because we are a U.S. Olympic training site. So that's pretty cool, and so you have rafting, you have whitewaters, a lot of stuff that you can do. We also have over 3,000 lakes in the state of Oklahoma, and our tribes, we have 39 tribes in our state, which offer a very unique incentive proposition to investors, which I'll get into that later. But those tribes have built incredible luxury resorts all over the state. So there's really something for just about anyone. We have a lot of a young and diverse group of people as well. The Automobile Alley, it's one where you can find dining experiences, and you can go bar hopping to really cool bars all over. That's what we like to do.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Sarah, speaking of rafting and water, I know North Carolina has the National Whitewater Rafting Center. So what else you got, though?
We have all kinds of stuff. I literally live down the street from a curling rink. If you want to try your hand at curling, I mean, we have everything. And I have to, just a personal story. So my father was a colonel in the Army, and so I have lived all over the place. And I spent some time in Raleigh as a kid and just knew right away that that's where I was going to stay. And the reason was the people were friendly. It wasn't as cold as some of the cold places that I'd been, but also there was so much to do. I can get to the beach in 2 hours. I can get into the mountains in a few more. There's lakes all over the place. And we spend a lot of time outside. We have beautiful greenways just throughout the state. But you asked what we do in our personal time. I would like to tell you that I go hiking in all of my personal time. What I actually do in most of my personal time, my family and I, we're big foodies. We love to eat. And I know if you go hear anybody from Texas talk, they will pretend like they have the corner on barbecue. But North Carolina has like territorial barbecue. Like you would think when you move to North Carolina, the most important thing is picking a college basketball team, which is also true. But before that, you have to pick East or West barbecue. And like there are family feuds about this kind of stuff. So the food scene is incredible. We attract so many young people who are looking for high quality of life. You can get an apartment in San Francisco or a mansion in Raleigh, your choice. So we attract a lot of people who want to move there for that. And so to support that, what do you need? You need good food and you need breweries, and we have a lot of both. So if you haven't had a visit to Raleigh in a while, definitely come check it out. It'll probably look different than if you saw it 15 years ago, because it's grown really intelligently. Still very low traffic, but a lot going on there. So.
Lindsey, this might be too easy for you.
Yeah, so I live in Nashville, so I'll pick on Nashville for a minute, which all of these cities are great, but Nashville, I mean, who has been to Nashville in the room? Right? It's awesome. So how can you not want to come back and start a business there, or in one of our other communities just outside? So for us, the reason my husband and I love to live in Nashville, you can get an hour outside the city and access those great hiking trails and those great lakes. But the city is really undergoing a kind of a cultural revolution. It's become very young, very current, very hip. The food scene, is rivaling that now of New York and LA and DC. So come for a visit, check it out. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. In addition to that, we also are home to the Nashville Predators, the Tennessee Titans. We have a new AAA baseball stadium that was built, which is an experience unto itself. You can also play mini golf while you're there, and partnered with an art community, so it's very great. We also got awarded an MLS franchise, so that'll be coming to town in the next year, so major sporting events. You may have seen us on the news recently as the host of the largest NFL draft. So 650,000 people in downtown Nashville over 4 days. Also, the CMA Music Festival just wrapped up this past week, but we are more than just country music, contrary to kind of media beliefs. So East Nashville, big arts and culture hub. We are home to several major record labels, which helps to propel that and keep that kind of young, fresh talent. I know we get compared to Austin a lot, but we're still substantially cheaper. And we were also selected as what I've been kind of calling internally HQ3 for Amazon. So we didn't get awarded the big contract, but we did get awarded the Center for Operational Excellence. So they'll be bringing 5,000 people on board. So as you can see, there's a lot going on.
Josh, what's secrets about DC? I mean, there's such a national and international pull here, but tell us about DC.
Yeah, and we're very happy to have gotten Amazon HQ2, but I'm glad that they're sharing the wealth. So aside from the museums, which I think are the largest draw to Washington, in addition to government, and the great food that DC has from everywhere in the world, which I think are both really important criteria. Two things I don't think people really know that much about what makes DC unique. One is we have a major national park that actually runs right through the center of the city. Once you leave downtown and you look at the map, you'll see Rock Creek Park, which bisects the city. You can get out into Rock Creek like 2 minutes from where I live, up 16th Street, and you feel like you're in the middle of a forest. And it's a great, especially if politics have become a little overwhelming for you and you feel like you need to escape, you actually don't have to go very far to kind of commune with nature in Washington, D.C. So it's typically a stereotypical, in fact, it was built on a swamp, but not all of it. So the outdoor options for Washington, D.C. are pretty remarkable in a very small town. D.C. is a city of about 600,000, so a very, very small city for U.S. standards. The other part is the embassy community. So on any given week, any given weekend, any time of the year, you can find international activities that are taking place at a variety of embassies around town. You feel like you're in a foreign country. You get to really kind of experience every culture you can imagine. And so I think that for me is a great way to feel like a global citizen in a city like Washington. Of course, these are three other cities which are exceptionally diverse, but I feel Washington, D.C., as far as its having an international presence of people from every walk of life, is a real attractor for the region.
Thanks, Josh. So I want to get back to business a little bit, and let's start talking, dive deeper into the entrepreneurship aspects of our work and what we're all trying to do here. And let's start with Lindsey, actually. I thought it was interesting that you talk about the breadth of your work across the entire state. You named a number of very different organizations, a national lab, universities. You are a nonprofit yourself. Mm-hmm. It sounds a bit like wrestling a giant. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about how you are successfully doing that, what enables you to work in that environment, whether it's culturally or the resources you have. Can you expound on that a bit?
Sure. I mean, culturally, I think the South, it really is true. Everybody is kind of, rising tides lift all boats and trying to be there and help each other out. For us, what we kind of look for that is key to us is a really willing and able partner in the region. So it could be that there's this great organization and they've got stuff going on, but if they don't have a true champion that is willing to push come to shove, do what they have to do to get things done, they're not going to be the perfect partner for us. And so we have found that in all of those different aspects. So within Oak Ridge National Lab, finding a champion within the lab who really felt strongly about fostering young startups, finding that within our universities. Like, it's not the whole entity. It truly can come down to those one or two people Sure. that really drive it from within. And so we've found that, we have identified that in all of these different partners across the region, and it really is that kind of unifying factor that helps us get our work done day in and day out.
Yeah, it's fascinating that one champion that can rally for the cause and deliver. Sarah, you talked about 5 years young, and you all had an interesting start with realizing the asset of the Internet of Things there locally. Tell us what the secret, and you touched on it a bit, but the secret sauce, if you will, to move from concept 5 years ago to where you're at today, which is really a new industry focus for the Triangle. It is not what the Triangle is known for.
That's right.
What enabled you to do that?
That's a great question, and I hope that every moderator phrases it that way. What's the secret sauce that's made you successful? Please always ask me that. I love that phrasing. If I had to break down what's made RIoT successful so far, there's a couple ingredients to what Craig called the secret sauce. One, I already talked about our history with RTP, but I mentioned, that's going back to the 70s, so it's not that it was always IoT focused. If there's some tech people in the room, maybe you would argue with me and say, yes, it was. We just called it machine to machine. And yes, the IoT is a term that's talking about a long history of tech, but leveraging what's there in the RTP, that's been huge for us. The diversity of industries, it's incredible what you can find in Raleigh, and we need that. So IoT, we talk about it sometimes like it's an umbrella. You need so many different things to make IoT happen. It can't happen in one vertical. You need to have some kind of hardware that's collecting data. You need to be able to communicate. You need to have that network. You need to be able to analyze that data. And if you want to drive insights from it, you need to be able to analyze and learn from it. So that means a lot of computing power. We're talking about an umbrella. This isn't one vertical. And so what's going to be key to that is partnerships. And so whether you're a big organization that's been around for 100 years or a startup that's 1 year out the gate and trying to go to market with your MVP, then you need partnerships. And so as a nonprofit, what we've offered is this neutral voice. So an organization might come and sponsor us because they're trying to be a smart city and they want to know which pilot projects they should start with. That way they're able to reinvest and keep that program going. Or it might be a multinational corporation that's saying, we have so many different ways that we could go in this new IoT space. Where should we go first? How do we start this conversation? And then if you're a startup, there are a lot of accelerators out there. I mean, a lot. This space is growing. I think we can all agree on that. What makes us unique as a nonprofit, also not taking any equity, not charging the startups, we're not run by a corporation. So if you come to us and you're considering, what cloud technology, Azure, AWS, we're not funded by an organization that's going to give you one answer. We're going to be able to talk with you about all your options. And so I think that neutrality has been really key for us, being able to provide that feedback, because there are so many options now. So I hope after hearing a little bit about RIoT, if you meet an organization that is wondering how they're going to go forward in this IoT space and that needs a neutral voice, partnering with a nonprofit like RIoT is a great solution. You can connect with our over 80 partners that we have now that directly fund us. You can maybe have a tech or talent or even customer pipeline by working with the startups that we work with. And then you can help leverage the partnerships and grow our ecosystem, to the Southern phrase that Lindsey alluded to earlier, that rising tide raises all boats.
So this is my opportunity as a shameless federal plug. Speaking of partnerships, I also want to highlight that the federal government, our office, and many others is directly partnering with organizations just like these to enable them to create those partnerships. So we have a number of grant programs, partnership programs, or just kind of amplification efforts that we do at the federal level to try to unlock local capacity. So in Sarah's case, it was a direct investment that gave them capital, the operating capital, to pull those 80 partners together. The staff, the marketing, and those efforts. And that's one way I think the U.S. federal government is working hard to support this type of work.
You actually helped us get our 3D printer too, so thank you.
Or with equipment and resources. So, and similar in concept perhaps, Josh, where you've got a market, and we talked about this already, DC being known for government and federal work and contracting and whatnot. So Sarah highlighted the Triangle and its long history with research and health and science and moving it into an IoT cluster. Can you tap into some of that you were talking to earlier about the talent that is driven into that social sector and what you guys are doing about it and how you've built the momentum?
Yeah, so specifically as a nonprofit incubator where we're not taking any equity in the companies, so how does our incubator actually function? It's actually a relatively expensive enterprise. we get about 1,000 applications from 70 countries for Halcyon fellowships, and we accept 16 companies a year. So we're accepting between 1% and 2% of the venture applicants that come to Halcyon. The selection process for Halcyon is probably the most important thing we do. But the reason that startups want to come and incubate at Halcyon, it's, of course, we're relieving all of the financial pressure from the companies for the entire duration that they're there for 5 months. We give them room and board. They live in a 18th century mansion in Georgetown, which is actually kind of nice. We actually give them a living stipend. These are early stage companies that are at the period of development where they're most likely to fail. That's when we want them. That's when we want to give them the tools they need. So as a nonprofit incubator, Washington, D.C. is good for us because basically every large U.S. and a lot of international companies have a presence in Washington, D.C. There is a growing community of impact and traditional investors in Washington. Most of our companies have a policy component to what they're doing. So whether it's disrupting the healthcare industry or education or energy, we can always find somebody that can help them navigate the policy dimensions of what they're trying to do. We have partnerships with several large companies, including Amazon and Deloitte Consulting and Capital One, and several law firms. All of those companies provide all of their business services to our startups completely for free. In addition to a very large pool of mentors and experts in every sector, leadership coaching, we have a completely immersive community that is exclusively based on people wanting to give back to the next generation of entrepreneurs. And it's a very philanthropic community, both here in Washington, D.C. and the United States. It's really hard to emulate that in other parts of the world, but we're trying. But basically, but the most important part of our ecosystem is that we've created the conditions for startups to actually collaborate with each other. Mm-hmm. So you have health tech companies collaborating with education companies, collaborating with energy companies, and they're all working and living together trying to solve the same kinds of problems. And if you really want to talk fun ecosystems, we do the same thing for our arts lab. So we have sculptors and painters and filmmakers and poets and choreographers who we're teaching to have more of a social impact through their art. Imagine programming where you have the entrepreneurs and the artists both learning how to market and brand themselves. I think that and how to manage their books and how to build a team. When you merge artists and entrepreneurs together, you actually get some really interesting results. And that's kind of one of the that's the kind of the special sauce of Halcyon that we get to see and experience every day.
Speaking of branding, it is often hard to talk about another region or another program. I mean, I know you all are the most loudest, strongest advocates for your programs and your regions, but we want to maximize everyone's time here. And Erika, entrepreneurship is a contact sport. It takes teamwork to get things done. And I think the same goes for the work that you're doing to support the entrepreneurs, the business leaders, the investors, and so on and so forth. What regions or what program gets you the most excited that you might call your best friend that's outside of Oklahoma, or at least outside of Oklahoma City, that you think is a good benchmark that you are equally excited about, maybe you share lessons with? Does anyone in particular come to mind when I talk that?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of, we partner with a lot of other programs throughout the I-35 corridor. So we're in Oklahoma, right above Texas, right below Kansas. And so
give me one.
So the favorite? Kaufman Foundation has, they have the entrepreneurial, what's it called? Gosh, it's going to escape my mind, but they fund, it's a very similar program than ours, nonprofit based. They don't take equity into the companies that they host. But then they also are partnering with Nebraska, obviously, as in Oklahoma, and there's another program in Houston and another one in San Antonio. And we're all trying to provide exchange programs for the entrepreneurs because of the peer-to-peer collaboration that needs to happen in the industries that we're all collaborating in. I will think of their name name here soon.
Well, it's probably helpful too, because I know as you guys work to establish that critical mass of business activity, you said
Yes.
you were kind of industry agnostic. You have a lot of different entrepreneurs as you start to build the momentum
Right.
in the city. So
Right. And
that
it's
type of
Entrepreneur's
cross-pollination.
Pipeline. Yes.
Yeah,
There you
entrepreneur
go.
pipeline. Yeah, okay.
So they're a partner of ours, but we're actually obviously my peers here, I learned something from just even this conversation. We're actually part of GAN, which is a global accelerator network, and
Yep.
it's a community comprised of like 105 accelerators throughout the world. We share emails, mentors list, investor list, and then we even vent to each other about, how do we
Great.
solve challenges together.
Sarah, what about you? Internet of Things, the Triangle. Who's your long lost family member?
I don't know, I'd have to do like an ancestry.com for that. But I do know, so the example that I want to share with this one is a little bit strange. Okay, so again, Raleigh, North Carolina, IoT focused. We're about leveraging the IoT assets that are in the southeastern United States, but we want IoT economic development, and that means outside of the southeastern United States. So one of our great partners is actually in Argentina, Cabase, if you've heard of them, and they've been a great partner. We've gone out and spoken a bunch of times. We love speaking at events like this and participating in the southeastern United States. We also love going abroad. We speak a lot in Europe, and we have a big presence in Asia. So we are trying to make sure that we truly create a partnership community that is willing to collaborate. Because for us, if we're measuring jobs created and investment in startups, and those are our metrics for success, then we can't be geographically bound. We have to recognize that these partnerships need to cross state lines, country lines, oceans. And so we're working very hard on that. So I picked Cabase as kind of a unique example. But earlier, you talked about rural communities. And I know that's something that Tennessee works with. I know that as we talk about big cities versus the rural communities. So just a small tidbit for you. If you haven't heard of Wilson, North Carolina, look up their story. A number of years ago, they decided to invest in their community by building their own fiber network, having a community-backed fiber network. And I won't go into the whole story because I don't want to spoil it. It's like a Disney movie. But if you fast forward to now, they have a startup and acceleration program that has basically helped to reverse their population decline because they can offer gig speeds for startups that want to go and develop and leverage that. And so they're drawing people to Wilson, North Carolina, a very small town. So look up that story in the Greenlight Community Broadband Project. I think you'll be very impressed.
I think that dovetails nicely with what we talked about earlier, where so many of these communities, I think, are just underrepresented in the national conversation because everyone immediately wants to talk about San Francisco or New York or one of these typical U.S. markets, but each of you represent an awesome, growing, thriving community, and it's such an arbitrage play for investors and entrepreneurs where your dollar, your work, you can go so much farther where these markets are more affordable, better quality of life, and so on. So just wanted to highlight that. I love that story. Lindsey, statewide, you've got an interesting perspective here. What you got? Who's your favorite partner?
So within our kind of 5 verticals that we play within, Kentucky is actually who we look to in the commercialization space specifically. So they had and have a very successful SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research, which is a federal grant program. They have a very successful matching program that we were able to emulate. So we started our program 2 years ago and actually doubled the funding for ours last year based off of Kentucky's success. So it's been very helpful for me in government relations as I talk to our state legislators to have a successful program like Kentucky's to look towards, but then partner that with all the great things we have in Tennessee. I think we'll be unstoppable.
Yeah. Josh?
If it wasn't for partnerships, our operation wouldn't exist. So there's so many to choose from, but I'll first of all, quick plug for EDA. I think that it's one of those sub-agency organizations that a lot of folks don't have a lot of familiarity with. But if you look at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, Michael Bertram, who was part of our National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship back in the day, they got their seed funding from EDA. So the federal government actually has these catalytic investments that it will make in starting an entrepreneurial ecosystem when it's really high-risk investment. And then they become self-sustainable. So I think they're kind of like the guy behind the guy that actually gets a lot of these ecosystems
Don't tell too many people. Don't share the
working.
secret.
No, I know. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you'll actually get more applicants, and it'll be great. But over 54% of our startups are founded by women. Over 64% are minority founders. There's a ton of data out there showing that companies that have women or minorities in the leadership actually do better. And so I'm interested in new kind of financing models that support, that kind of level the playing field for women-led companies. There's still a massive a disparity between male and female-led companies as far as access to capital in the United States is concerned. If you look, so the one partner that I really like and I'm looking very closely at is Ellevest. Sally Krawcheck, who's a very successful entrepreneur, has come up with entirely new funding mechanisms for women-led startups. I think that those kinds of partners, they're going to get more capital into the hands of potentially very successful founders. Those are the kinds of partners that I'm always on the lookout for. And we just actually find that it's the diversity of our applicant pool is actually what leads to the success of Halcyon. You know, our companies, we only have 80 companies in our portfolio. They've raised just under $100 million in outside financing now, and these are all very early stage companies. A lot of that has to do with minority and women leadership in each of these companies.
Thanks, Josh. This is SelectUSA. This is all about making the pitch, making connections, and I've asked our participants to close with a pitch. And before we go through the close here, I'd like to stir some questions up. So if you got questions, we'll transition to questions here in a second. We'll save some time at the end. But again, each of you are coming from very different regions, different programs, with different interests, different industries. Would love to hear your pitch, your closing pitch for this crowd here. Very international, very diverse economic development organizations, entrepreneurs, investors themselves. How would you sell your community and your work today?
So I'm not here to sell you on it, because I think that if you really have a company that, I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but I think if you're a startup that is building a solution for an enterprise or for aerospace, agriculture, fintech, you need to be in Oklahoma. We're actually a big corporate state, and those are the industries that make up most of our economy. If you are an investor, we have 117 opportunity zones and 39 tribes, native tribes, which offer very unique incentives to investors looking to come in either as a greenfield project or to invest in existing companies, and I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one about that. Last but not least, as you mentioned there, if you're international, I used to do foreign direct investment for the state of Oklahoma, so that was my job, to convince you to come in Oklahoma. I'm now a recovering economic developer. But I would say what makes us different is that there are other high-profile states or communities, but we're just over 100 years old. So we're actually a very new state. So the opportunity for growth is exponential. The other thing I would say is that you actually would come in and help us build a community and city that you want to live in from the ground up, because we are so young, and you get to build it with us. So that's my pitch.
Wonderful. There is no perfect pitch. Each of these are unique. Sarah, let's hear it.
So I'll start with IoT again. IoT is the fourth industrial revolution. It is here. It's not coming, it's here. Data is the new oil, and if your organizations are going to survive, they need to be thinking about how they're going to leverage new IoT business models, and that's from tech organizations to Main Street. You're going to need partnerships to make that happen and to navigate these crazy waters that we're getting into, some of them 5G flavored, and we would love to help you with that. As a nonprofit organization, we can provide neutral advice that helps you figure out how to grow and scale. And we do have assets in the southeastern United States that we can help you leverage, but our reach is far beyond that. So if you have questions about IoT, what your organization is doing in it, or if you're an IoT thought leader and you want to make sure that your voice is amplified, if you want to use our startups as part of your tech or talent or customer pipeline, then you need to connect with me. So please connect with me, and happy to talk IoT, and we can debate 5G if you want.
So we truly do have something for any kind of entrepreneur of a scalable mindset within any region of our state, depending on your industry focus. But moving into the state of Tennessee unlocks all the resources of Launch Tennessee, which I think is a great incentive to do so. So that could be capital, SBI, our matching fund. We also have an impact fund that helps seed early stage companies. Market access, so we connect our entrepreneurs directly with corporates looking to invest within those startups, whether that be traditional kind of venture capital investment or corporate venture investment, or becoming a customer, which is something we really pull for. Commercialization focus, so the national labs and the institutions are kind of all there and available to help you. And then the environment itself, so we're 48th in overall taxation, very business-friendly climate in the state of Tennessee, but then you also have a group like Launch Tennessee that is really advocating for startup-friendly policy as well. So I think that's a big advantage.
Great. Last but not least, Josh, and get your questions ready. We're rolling them just next.
I think if less about Washington and more about the United States, figuring if you want to do business here, you want to access the market, you want to find partners, figuring out a way to orient yourself as doing well and doing good at the same time. I think investors are starting to look much more closely at the positive social impact from businesses, making sure that you're taking the most vulnerable people, both the customers and perhaps people who are involved ancillarily with the business. The issue is that it's not just corporate social responsibility. It's not just giving some of your profits to a charity. It's about actually the positive social impact at the core of your business models are going to resonate with the U.S. consumer and with U.S. investors. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a growing trend from investors who are exclusively looking at returns on investment, on financial gains from investing in your company and trying to bring your company into their portfolio. They are looking for companies who are really thinking about doing good. So I think that is an orientation which is going to help every company in every industry. I also, just as a quick plug, Halcyon knows that it's a small operation here in Washington, D.C., but we've already begun to work with ecosystems around the country. We've licensed our methodology to universities and to other kind of epicenters of entrepreneurship in other countries. We're looking at expanding our physical footprint in other regions. And I think one of the things that makes our ecosystem successful is that we're not just looking at bringing local entrepreneurs in. It's about attracting entrepreneurs from throughout the United States and around the world, and being able to bring the best talent from everywhere in the world to your country, to your, I know we're here to talk about the United States, but I think that building a pool of talent that focuses around a social enterprise ecosystem in your country and your region is equally important.
Thanks, Josh. Enough about us, though. What's on your mind? Questions for the panel? Yeah, please. There's a mic right behind you.
Hello. Thank you for this discussion. I was wondering which sectors Halcyon is focusing on.
The short answer is we don't care. Being sector agnostic is a deliberate move on our part. We feel that companies from different sectors collaborating with each other actually has a lot of benefit. If I were to say, which sectors are the most prolific as far as where are we getting the most applications from, a ton in health, new medical devices that are cheaper, smarter, faster, focusing on the most vulnerable populations in the world. A lot on ed tech, and a lot in the food industry. So what does the future of food look like? How do we combat food waste? How do we actually keep the world fed when the face of the planet is changing so much? Those are the kind of growth sectors that we're seeing, but we get applications from every sector. Yeah, we're more interested in who has the transformative idea than what particular sector they're coming from.
Great. Anything else? Yeah, please.
My name is Mark Prague. I'm the interim director of the Houston MBDA Business Center, so we're devoted to minority-owned businesses. But one thing I'm noticing, are you at all dealing with your existing entrepreneurs and inducing them in some form or manner to hire? Because what we're noticing is the more successful clients of mine hire people to do the things that A, they're not very good at or they don't like to do. So adequate back office is so vital, and I'm wondering if you have any programs around that.
I can speak to our SBIR matching program. So one of the things that our funding can be utilized to do is to hire FTEs, full-time employees, for companies outside of the research purview. So we really want those funds to be complementary to the federal funding they receive for research. And so we do make suggestions around perhaps hiring marketing, back-end office support, where they can expand in those purviews. We also run a very successful and fairly large-scale intern program that we're scaling up, which places interns from outside the state and inside the state with startup companies to kind of expose them earlier on at a very low-cost barrier to what additional support in the right places can look like.
Yeah, an entire subset of our Halcyon curricula is focused on how to hire and who to hire. And all of our companies are looking for, I mean, most of them are scientists or engineers or researchers who have the tech down pat. But they have never pitched an investor. They have never done a cap table. They've never done a valuation. They've never balanced a book in their life. And that's great. That's your typical entrepreneur. So teaching them exactly who they need rather than who they think they need is a critical part of the scaling of a company. And so we actually not just teach them kind of how to do that, but we also do a lot of matchmaking from local universities. So we have a talent pool of people who are actually further along in their career than you would think, that are considering working for startups rather than moving on in the company that they're with. Turns out working for startups is a lot of fun.
The dress code's much better too.
And the dress code rules.
Josh mentioned earlier that they leverage partners for their curriculum, for their mentoring, and similarly, so in our accelerator, we also go over those things and we make sure to leverage partners and mentors to come in and talk about those subjects. But something unique that really anyone, if you're involved in programs like this, could replicate. We have interesting, every other month we hold what we call a founders roundtable, and we get our larger corporations to bring someone from really high up, like as high as we can get. This is the ultimate skip level meeting, if you will. And we get them to Riot Labs, to the hardware prototyping space, and we bring our founders in. And we have this 2-hour roundtable discussion where they're able to talk to these executives with tons of experience about what they're going through. And it's a little bit like how my 5-year-old will listen to the soccer coach, but not me. Sometimes they need this other voice to come in, and even if it's something we've gone over in the accelerator, when this executive from IBM comes in and talks about it, they're like repeating our curriculum back to us, like, did you hear what he said about that? Well, yes, we taught you that, but we're so glad that you're hearing it now. So bringing those other voices in, that also helps to surround our entrepreneurial ecosystem with support from the major corporations who are now vested in these startup founders that they met and want to support and want to see grow. So that's another program, really with any kind of challenges that you're working with startups, that would be interesting. And we'd love to connect more with Houston and work with your startups too. So.
Great. We've got time for one more question. What's in the field? Sure.
Thank you very much. Obviously, choosing the right ecosystem is very important, and I understand that several cities, states, venture capitals, and everybody can formulate separate ecosystems. If you could advise a European-based company to start from a specific step in order to select the ecosystem or to choose the right ecosystem, how would you advise that company to start from A and goes to B?
Yeah. So I can do that. I used to be the global director for FDI for the state of Oklahoma, and then I did it for Mexico before that, for actual companies. And I would say you need to start for what makes sense for you. So it's great to learn about all the different states and what the U.S. has to offer. But I think ultimately what makes sense for your business comes first, so, right? So what industry are you in? What clusters? Where are the vendors? Where are the customers that are going to be leveraging your product? I don't know your business real well, but just understanding that and what you will need once you're in country to be able to complement your business, I think that's number one. Number two, for the companies that I work with, it was always workforce, so making sure that you have the talent that you're going to need. Obviously, we talked a lot about quality of life, and that's great. We talked a lot about our programs, but there's different. We all thrive in different type of workforce development training. So understanding what you need specific to your business model, I think it's important. And I think really the funding and complement incentives are always good. Cost of living is always good. I think we're going to be more competitive than anybody in the coast. But I think everybody's going to give you a different pitch. I think ultimately it comes to your type of business model.
Yeah.
One way to quickly sift through all that, the workforce, the industry concentration, and identify clusters is the U.S. cluster mapping tool. So the Economic Development Administration manages a cluster mapping tool, which you can drill down to the level of our counties to understand the concentration of industry activity. So what industries are leading in that area, which also complements the workforce base. So what type of talent is there? Is it software? Is it manufacturing? Is it clean tech? So it's open source. Anyone can use it. So check out US Cluster Mapping, and you can, like I said, you can search through the states for all sorts of different criteria to at least start to develop maybe a short list of communities that might be within the criteria or framework of the community that you need. Josh, did you have something?
Yeah, just two quick things. Look at sister cities. So there's a lot of cities in the United States that have a sister city in Europe. Yep. There's already existing commercial ties, cultural ties. That's something that you can certainly look at and build on. And the other is diaspora communities. So are there concentrations of diaspora communities from your country in a particular city? Those are people who are already going to be advocates for kind of what's happening in your country. So I think that looking at those two things, so you're not just starting from scratch in a particular country, those are two kind of hints to maybe help into your decision making. It's all about people.
Speaking of all about people, that's a great way to wrap up. I think some of the panelists have some time to hang out. If you got some questions after this, please engage. But otherwise, thanks for your time, folks, and thanks for attending. Have a great day.
Thanks.